What is up, Kings? Happy Sunday. Today is, of course, Palm Sunday if you are a member of the Eastern Orthodox Church. So I wanted to say that. And of course, if you're not aware what Palm Sunday is, now, of course, within Eastern Orthodoxy, there is the element of fasting and that whole aspect. Of course, I am new to Eastern Orthodoxy, but my understanding, for the most part, what fasting is, on top of it being something that clears your mind, in which that time period you are supposed to pray and become closer to God and use that method as a means to an end of getting closer to God. It's something that's in honor of, in remembrance of, that sort of thing. And also, again, broadly speaking, to me, I've always thought of fasting as, and especially now that I'm Orthodox, as a means to not only remember somebody like Lazarus, which I will explain in a moment, but to remember Christ, and specifically the trials and tribulations that he went through, the suffering in particular that he went through. But Palm Sunday is a day of remembrance regarding, I believe, the only other man to be brought from the dead other than Jesus. Now, of course, Jesus did it for himself. Jesus is the only person to be brought from the dead on his own. Lazarus was brought back from the dead as a means to show the disciples that followed Christ that he was indeed God. So anyways, just wanted to share that bit. But I did want to talk about something that's been on my mind the last couple of days. I saw a video from Outkick. Outkick is a media company, for lack of a better phrase, that was founded by Clay Travis. And personally, I've known Clay Travis known of him for a long time. I listened to him when he was on Fox Sports Radio. You know, he was one of the very few people in sports media who actually gave a somewhat unbiased, well, not unbiased, but somewhat of a decent take, a different take. In sports media, much like most of the media, it's extremely liberal and extremely one-sided. There's a ton of groupthink that goes on, and virtue signaling, and Clay was the one person who didn't do that. And I was always impressed by his willingness to stand alone, even at risk of offending both sides. So anyways, he founded Outkick, and Outkick, once it got to a certain place, largely on the shoulders of Clay Travis, who would write for the website, do his Periscope and Twitter Live and Facebook Live and YouTube Live, I suppose, Fox bought it. And Fox bought it as a means, kind of like ABC did for ESPN, to get to be in the sports arena. Now, of course, Fox Sports does technically have its own company, FS1, but it was just another way of. But FS1 is kind of different. It's not similar to the branding of Fox that much. And buying Outkick was a way for Fox to buy a company that was more similar to their worldview than, say, FS1, or kind of like a ABC buying ESPN. I digress. And one of the individuals that they have, her name is Riley Gaines, and Riley Gaines is popular for fighting for female rights, in particular on the TG the Hans Hender stuff. And because she was the one who lost to Ia Thomas in a swim race. And of course, Ia Thomas is a biological male. And she has been supremely outspoken about it. And, you know, she has mentioned how uncomfortable she felt with, you know, men being allowed, specifically Ia Thomas being allowed into the female locker room, so on and so on. And I saw a clip. I don't even think necessarily Riley Gaines was in this clip, but there was a clip from Outkick, and Riley Gaines works for Outkick now. And I saw a clip discussing this situation from two other sportscaster females that worked for Outcast. I don't think it was Riley Gaines in particular, but they may have used within that clip a clip from Riley Gaines and her stances on all of this. And I say all of that just to give context to me kind of discussing my take on the whole Hans Hender TG for short situation that exists, and the fact that I'm kind of two minds when it comes to this. So on one hand, I fully understand that it is wrong morally when you know, you Andrew, who's one of the best debaters in the YouTube, I guess, content creation field, he always talks about there's a difference between ought and is. And for me, obviously, it ought be the case that, in my eyes, that women are protected and should have separate things, and men should have separate things. I very much am in favor of gender separation and acknowledge that there is a difference. I'm going through the car wash right now. That there is a difference between the genders, different skills, different talents, especially when it comes to physical things. But like I said, ought and is are two different things. And what is the case is, for example, we cannot take back the fact that feminism took root, that it is indeed a thing. We cannot take back the fact that many women bought in to feminism. Maybe not initially, but you know, you look, especially nowadays, in the culture that is, and you know, while I do think that there's a lot of women that are waking up to the perils and issues of feminism, the sad fact is, you still have a ton of women that have this kind of boss babe mentality. And we can't change that. It is what it is. And so, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm kind of two minds with this, because while that is the case, and you commonly see, especially on these dating podcasts or debate shows, you commonly see these women that are, I mean, it's kind of across the board. It's traditional women who purport to be traditional insofar as what they can stomach. There's almost always a line that they are traditional up until this. And seldom are they completely all the way traditional all the way. You know, the women who kind of sit in the middle, who aren't traditional but aren't feminist, they do still tend to take or do not purport to be feminist. I always have to add that caveat, because as Rollo Tomasi says, and even Andrew and Rachel Wilson, I have heard them say that feminism is so rampant in the West that if you were born in the West, you can't help but have a little bit of feminism within you because it is so ingrained in society, and you have been so indulged, and it has washed over you time and time and time again, that it's impossible for it to not exist within you a wee bit. So those women, they tend to defer to feminism or a feministic mindset, even if they don't realize it. Commonly taking on the boss babe, anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. That sort of shit. And then you have the blue-haired, super liberal, equal across the board, and most of the time they get totally schooled as well, because they are, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, they only want it equal. They're kind of similar to the tradcons in that they are only equal insofar as it still benefits them. It's kind of what Brian from the Whatever podcast calls it, the buffet style feminism. And so what I'm getting at here, guys, is it, to me, while I acknowledge that men are supposed to be the leaders, they are the leaders. Now, somebody like Andrew would say, even within men, most men are going to be followers. And I do agree with that. I mean, most men still are going to be followers. But at least when it comes to the household, men are, and I believe should be, the head of household, should be the leader, so on and so on. And should be the predominant leaders, if not just the predominant, the leaders of society, even if it's only a select handful of men at the end of the day. And so while I acknowledge that, and I do acknowledge that, you do want to see be the change that you want to see in the world. For example, if you want America to go back to a patriarchal society, in the West to go back to a patriarchal society, then you need to live out those practices and push for policies and ideas and ideals that go alongside patriarchal aspects to society. While I do acknowledge all of that, there is a little bit within me that, and I'm positive that a lot of men feel the same way, that resents what women have done to totally ruin our society and ruin the dynamics that exist between men and women. That part of me is like, you guys deserve everything that you get with this whole TG situation. And part of me is like, no, I don't want to save you guys. I don't care to get involved in that situation, because you are the same people who say that men and women are exactly equal. Okay, well, if we're exactly equal, then you can handle this on your own. If we are interchangeable widgets and the exact same, then you can handle this on your own. And you don't need a man to enforce, as Andrew would say, your ideals and ideology. Now, I do believe that. I do believe that men are needed. And this is why women can never be in charge of society, because at the end of the day, if you break it all the way down to its finest grain of sand, as Andrew will commonly do and it brilliantly does, if you break it down to its finest degree, I'm mixing metaphors here, men are the enforcers of everything in society. And therefore, I do believe that if they want to go back, they will need men to enforce it and do it. But, it's just very hard, because it's like, man, it's kind of a situation where it's like, oh, okay, look at the mess that you have left behind and you want me to clean it up. Look at the mess that you have wrought. Oh, shocker, you want me to clean it up? Now, I get it. It's like I said, I'm totally of mixed minds about this, because while I acknowledge the roles of men and the being the head of society, while I do acknowledge that, it's just like, man, you guys should reap what you have wrought, and honestly, take care of this on your own. Because if you guys are these bad babes and whatnot, you should be able to handle this on your own. And for example, I can almost guarantee you that Riley Gaines, if you were to ask her what her thoughts are on gender dynamics and the role of a woman, I can guarantee you that she would lean far closer to a feminist than she ever would to somebody like me, who believes in gender differences and a patriarchy and things like that. And people like her don't realize, and this is commonly the case that I find with Republicans and neoconservatives that are not as red-pilled as they think. They don't realize that it's their ideology that actually gave way to, and their way of thinking that actually gave way, or lack thereof, and the things that they were willing to permit and go along with, that actually wrought this situation, that brought forth this situation. Somebody like Riley Gaines does not realize that by her not believing in gender differences, and this is me speaking hypothetically, I don't know this for sure, I would have to see, I'm not sure that she's ever been asked this, but by her, just hypothetically, by her believing or not believing in gender differences, she actually brought forth this type of society where men and women are interchangeable, and whether they pretend to be a woman or pretend to be a man, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, they're interchangeable widgets without lacking defined roles. So this is a very interesting situation, honestly. And like I said, I am very much of two minds with this. I kind of like where I'm leaning right now is let's allow them to take care of this for a while, and we'll kick back. We'll be the patriarchs that we are, and we'll supervise. We'll kind of just watch and see how it goes, give tips here and there on how to take care of it. And then after that, once enough groundwork has been done, then we can jump back in and, start implementing the society that we're looking for. But, I am honestly not very optimistic. Rather, I'm pessimistic that that's even going to happen, because until people like Riley Gaines and until some of these neocons and just normal everyday citizens that complain and discuss how wrong it is for a biological male to compete against biological females, until they are willing to acknowledge fully the differences in the sexes and the differences in gender roles, and be willing to define them, until they are willing to do that, this is going to be a fool's errand, because one begets another. So until they're able to wrap their worldview around and fully embrace the mindset that it would take to get back to a society that does not have this sort of stuff, shenanigans going on, it will continue. And that's the whole thing, guys, is that at the end of the day, what we are seeing is the end result of Western ideals. And when I say Western ideals, I mean Protestantism, I mean separation between church and state, I mean feminism. Those, if you really think about it, are the end results of the founding principles that America was founded on. That's what separates a lot of paleo conservatives like myself from the everyday kind of vanilla conservative is when you really, really get down to it and think about it. Was the Constitution that good? Or did it have flaws like most man-made things? Could it use some tweaking? Probably. In favor of some of the stuff that I'm talking about. So anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think. Like I said, this was more just kind of like a thought experiment for me rather than me one way or the other definitively saying one thing or the other. I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on it. I'm very curious what you guys have to think. So let me know in the comment section, like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy alone. Facts are feelings because your feelings just matter. Love you, kings. Christ is king. Peace.